those of us who want to modify our headphones for balanced connection are faced with two problems. First, if we don't know how to do it, well, finding instructions online is pretty frustrating. Second, it's a little difficult finding someone who will do the modifications for us at a reasonable cost. Those who know how to solder and are familiar with modifications will laugh. Those people clearly have a skill that many audiophiles do not. I wanted to modify my DT880 600 ohm variant so that I could continue testing them regarding power requirements. I don't know how to do all the modifications and was looking around for help. A subscriber named Matt reached out to me and offered to do the modifications for free, and obviously I could not pass up that opportunity. The 880 came back fully modified, looked great, and worked fantastically. I then asked this person if he would be willing to modify my DT770 and DT880, both 250 ohm variants. He said yes. We agreed to a price and I sent him these headphones. Well, he told me today that he uploaded a video showing how to do the modifications using my own headphones. I watched this video. The video is easy to understand, clear, and very down to earth, providing explanation on how to do the modifications. It is rather generous of Matt to upload this step-by-step instructional video. He didn't have to, but he did it out of generosity. With his permission, I am uploading his video here. I have also linked to Matt's Etsy store so you can have him modify your headphones. He told me he can probably modify other headphones, not just the Beyerdynamic DT series. So, if you're curious, message him on Etsy. Frankly, I could not be happier with the modifications Matt made. He clearly has skill and a talent for teaching. Way to go, Matt.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's Oriolus here, doing another detachable cable mod for a pair of DT880s today. Today we're actually going to be doing the balanced mod for this. So what I'm going to be doing is a dual-sided 3.5mm on each side modification. And this is going to allow you to use cables that can do balanced. So if you had a dual 3.5mm male on the headphone side to say a 4-pin XLR on the other side, you could run these into a 4-pin XLR out on something like a THX 789 or something similar to do balanced. So that's something that people want with Beyerdynamics recently. I've noticed especially they want balanced modifications. So I'm going to show you how to do that today with two 3.5mm jacks. So the first thing that you really want to do is you want to make sure that your headphones are working before you start anything. So just run a couple tests on them. I'm going to leave a link in the description about doing left and right tests, polarity tests, space shakers, all that, to see if there's anything wrong before you actually do the modification. So once you do that, basically what we're going to be doing is just taking them apart, which is pretty easy. They make these really easy to take apart. So I like to pull everything out like this. Taking off the pad is simple. Just pry out from underneath here. If you've seen my other video on doing the single-sided mod, you can skip a lot of this. It's going to be very similar to that. The only difference is we're going to be drilling a hole in the other side and doing the mod to the other side as well, so that each side has its own ground connection rather than sharing one. So take it apart, oh sorry, you pull that out by, I take this flathead screwdriver, I just pop out underneath here. It should come out pretty easily. If you're having trouble with it, just be careful, because you can pop this white underneath here. You don't want to do that. So take the foam off. You're going to take this out, and here's your driver, and here's your wiring that goes out to the cable. Now, since this is a dual-sided mod, you can actually take this whole thing apart for desoldering pretty easily. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to snip this. We don't need that anymore. I'm actually going to snip off the other side also. You pull it out like that, and then here's just your driver with all the connections on it. So you can put that to the side for now. Take this apart. You're just going to take this little silver clip out. Pulls out with your fingernails, pretty easy. And then you can pull the wire right out. And there you go, done. So now what we're looking to do is, you're going to see this nice square hole. We're going to be shoving a jack in there that wouldn't fit otherwise. You have to Dremel a hole, basically. So you're going to Dremel down like this, and then up a tiny bit too. And you're going to see this jack that we're using is round for sure. So you're going to want to do a little bit at a time. You're just going to Dremel down and Dremel a little bit up. And I'll show you when I'm done with this here. I'm going to Dremel off camera. Okay, so here's our hole. This is my first go at it. I haven't tried to test fit yet, but that's going to be generally about what it looks like when it's done. I'm going to okay, so to get this to fit in and actually want to stay in, you're going to see that there's things on the side. This is gonna we're gonna pull these out into the inside of the cup, but they're not going to fit as is right now. So what we need to do is we're going to take, oops, that bent a little bit. We're going to take some wire cutters is what I use. I'm going to put them under the wing, and I'll show you exactly where I cut when I'm done. So now you can see that's about what you need. It's right under where it starts to pivot right here. So just a little bit under that is what you're going to do. So we're going to do it to the other side now too. Just make sure it lines up nicely. It should be just, you should be able to see where it curves a little bit right under the wire cutters right there. It just flew off into the abyss of my room. I'll never find that. So that's it. That's done and ready to go in. So as long as there's enough room here, this should just kind of pop in. You want to do the ground side down. This long pin is going to be our ground. So you want to do ground pin down. And that does fit. It fits in, but it's a little more tight than I would like it. So I'm going to pop it back out and Dremel a little bit more. When you do this, you're going to see there's going to be some plastic, like shreds, I guess, inside of the cup and all around the hole and stuff. You're going to want to get that out all before you seal everything back up, just because nobody wants that there. All right, so now I'm going to try it again, and now it fits like a glove. It's kind of just slides in without any effort. So what I do now is I'm going to take that little piece of plastic, it's going to bother me. Take my knife. Where's my knife? There it is. Take my knife. I'm going to go underneath the wings here. I'm going to pop it out. Might take a little bit of force, but not too much. You'll hear that. And do it the other side. And just like that. Now it's locked into place. Now you're gonna have a really, really hard time getting this out. But it's nice and secure in there. You can yank on it all you want. It's not gonna come out. So now what we want to do, you're gonna see, since we're doing the dual-sided, we actually want to seal this up also. There's gonna be a hole here left by the wire that's going from the other side. Oh, come on. You can pull out this little rubber piece. So what I'm gonna do is, I have a hot glue gun on the side here that it's been heating up for quite a while, at least over an hour now, but you just want it to be able to seal up this hole that's left here. See if I can get this on camera. Okay. Okay. So that hole is now sealed up. I'm gonna take away the excess hot glue in a second once it's all dried. But what we can do for now is we can wire up the jack to be ready to fit to the driver. So I'm gonna take some Mogami W2893, some four core wire. I'm going to measure out about how much I think I'll need. I think like that's good. Where'd that knife go that I just had? There it is. I'm gonna cut it open, and we're just here for the inner wires. That's all. There's gonna be like copper shielding and stuff. Don't need any of that. I'm just gonna cut this away here. Yeah, this side's being annoying. Just peel all the copper off. There's gonna be some strings in here. Don't need that. Take all the strings out, unravel your wires, and for now you're only gonna need 2. So I kind of just like to color code my stuff. So this is the left side, so we're gonna be using white and blue. It really doesn't matter, it makes no difference. It's just for my own sanity. Now I'm gonna strip these wires. This is 26 gauge inner wire. I use some small wire strippers. This pair is actually for my friend over at, I don't know if I said this already or not, but my friend over at No Theme Reviews. This is the second of 3 pairs that he's sent me for balanced modification, because he's been doing a lot of testing with the Beyerdynamic stuff recently, especially since all of the hype around the DT880 600 ohm. So now this is a 250 pair, and then he sent me a pair of 770 250s as well with this. I'm going to link his channel in the description because he has some really awesome reviews. They're very, very detailed, and he has a lot of equipment to work with, so it's really a nice place to get some good content in. Alright, so now I'm going to use this one for the ground wire. We only need 2 per side, so I'm going to do blue and white. Now I'm going to take my soldering iron. It's very, very hot. It should be very, very hot. You want it to go quick. So I'm going to put some solder on. And touch some fresh solder to that. And it should, it's giving me a little bit of trouble, but there you go. Oh, fantastic. Okay, so that means it wasn't in all the way. Now I actually have to finagle with this a little bit here. Okay. Now it's on there. Of course, the one time that I'm filming it. I'm just tinning the wires ends here so that when I actually do put the driver on later, it's much easier. You want to make sure that sometimes these strands will break away a little bit, but you want to get it through the holes on this jack that I use. Same thing here. Okay, so now this side's almost ready. Now I can take away the excess hot glue here. You just want it to be able to cover that hole. It actually ends up looking pretty cool from the outside too. It's like a little orb of hot glue, which kind of looks nice. So now I'm going to actually add some more hot glue underneath the wings that I spread out before here, under each side. And then I'm going to put some some blue tack in here, because these posts like to come a little bit loose sometimes, and I just don't want it creating any rattle, so I put some hot blue tack in there to stop it from moving at all when there's music going. And then I'm going to put some, you'll notice that once I'm done with the hot glue on left and right side here, I'll put some blue tack in front and back to seal up any gaps that are left behind here. This is all for the sake of, well, this is the detachable cable mod on one side, but if you're doing it on both sides, this is for the sake of balanced usually, or if you just like using dual-sided cables. I don't have any input on if balance actually makes it sound better or not. I've used a THX 789 for a while with a pair of HD6XX. I never really noticed a difference and didn't really affect how I thought about the music at all. I'm not a huge critical listener guy. I'm more of a modification guy. I just like playing around with stuff. I don't actually listen to all that music, all that much music anyway. So I don't really have too much input on the balanced argument. But this is going to allow you to output more power to the headphones. That is confirmed. Like when you use the balanced output on the 789, it does output more power than just the single-ended output. So that can be good. I don't know, for the DT880 600 ohm, yes, they definitely require a lot of power. No, they don't sound good on my single-ended Tor Nick Audio tube amp. They kind of sound pretty distorted and not good, actually. On my tube amp, I never got around to trying them balanced on an actual balanced amplifier, but I hear good things so far. I don't know. People like to be trying. I've gotten a lot of inquiries lately on balance for the 600 ohm DT880s, which is good. I'm glad that people are experimenting with it. You'll notice this blue tack really sticks to the foam. Just try your best not to like get it too stuck, because it can be really annoying to get it unstuck if you need to. I'm just pressing the blue tack against the back here so that it does its best to seal up the gaps left behind here. And now look at that. We have one nearly completed side. I just need to solder in the original driver. So, okay, so now we're gonna take the driver and we're gonna desolder the connections that I snipped off so hastily before. How I'm gonna do that is lean it up like this. Absolutely take a picture of these connections before you desolder anything. People have told me in the past that they desoldered it and then didn't know which connection was which later on. With this balanced mod, and actually with the single-sided mod too, we're really only using two of the connections. We're using the left and right, but the left and right can vary if it's positive or negative dependent on what the other side is, so the right side in this case. So just take a picture of it before and try and emulate it the same when you do your new wires. So we're just gonna desolder here. I find this much easier than trying to like reuse these wires or something. That's just do new wires. If you're really not comfortable soldering on the driver, you can try, especially with these ones. They probably work, but it's so small and so much, there's not much wire to work with here. So I like having, you know, you can pick your length of wire, and this really isn't that difficult. As long as your soldering iron is hot enough, it really shouldn't be that difficult. So you can get some solder on the tip, and you want it to go fast. It needs to go fast. If you do it slowly and you hold the soldering iron on there for a long time, there's two little tiny pads in the back there. Those are holding the voice coils, and the voice coils are an enormous pain in the ass to try and solder back on if they do happen to break, or sorry, desolder while you're doing this. I've never even tried it because it's just a pain in the ass. You're probably just gonna have to order a new driver if that happens. So do it really quickly. That's my advice. Whoever did this original soldering job put in way too much solder on these points. You only need a little bit for it to stay. Okay, so now on this jack on the inside, we only need the tip and the ground connections. You don't need, there's another one on the left side. I just have TRS jacks, tip, ring, sleeve jacks, because I do the single-sided also. You only need the tip and the ground for if you're doing the two sides individually. So I have the ground here, and then on the right side is soldered, where the blue wire is soldered to the right side here. That's going to be our tip, and that's always true for these types of jacks. I couldn't tell you for other types. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this here. Again, you're going to do it quickly. Way too much solder. Whoever soldered this in the factory did an awful job. There's way too much solder on these pads. Okay, that's now attached. We're done with this side. If you were doing this on DT770s, you'd also have to do, there's like a back plate thing that you'd have to screw around with. I cover that in my other video if you're doing this on 770s. But other than that, everything is the same for the 770s, 880s, and 990s. Everything is the same. So now, what I like to do is to twist this driver sideways a little bit so that these connections aren't anywhere near these connections. So I twist it to the left a little bit. And you see there's actually kind of like a notch for the notch is not really supposed to be there. And you can kind of just pop it in. And it sits. It's harder to get out when it's in like sideways like this. But again, you can just use, where did it go? A screwdriver. And kind of pop it out if you need to again. But it sits in there nice and flush now. So now we can put it back together. Foam pad. This ring snaps in. There you go. That's one side done. I'm actually going to put the pad back on. New pads are very easy to put back on. Pads that have been used a lot, I found, can dry out and are extremely hard to put on sometimes. Just try not to pull it too hard. Okay, so that's the left side done. Now we're going to do the right side. You'll also notice that there's this wire that's running from one side to the other that I've now snipped. I'm just going to pull it through. Same thing with the pad. There's a driver again. You're going to want to take a picture of the connections. Actually, I'm recording on an old phone, so I'm going to do it on a new phone. Okay, sorry. Because this side's, so it's the same. So it has to be, if you were ground on the right side before, it's going to be ground on the right side on this driver too, respectively. But better off just safe than sorry here. So I'm going to put this over the side. Okay. Now we're ready to do the most difficult part of the balanced dual-sided modification. So really what we're doing is, you'll see in here, from the factory, there's still a spot where this square jack would have been. You'll see it in here. On some pairs, you'll actually see the square on the outside too. That's not the case with this pair. This one, they've addressed that. But on pairs of like 770s and stuff, you'll see the square on the outside. The square on the outside helps a lot. But since I don't have that here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pencil. I'm going to find about where the square hole is. And I'm going to mark right in the center. And that should line up. And I can kind of figure out where it's supposed to be on this axis, just based on where this lip is here. So if you can kind of vision where it is on this side. So I've marked about right here. And then once you drill your initial hole, you'll be able to see on the inside square about where you are, and then you can work from there, going left to right. So I'm going to do this off camera. I'm not sure if I'm going to edit this video yet or not, but I'll give you some progress as we go along here. Get my light over here. Okay, so I just started the little, you can see the mark there. I actually forgot to put on, you're gonna want eye protection for this Dremeling, because it's not fun when you get shot in the eye with very hot plastic. So definitely wear eye protection here, and we'll be back. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so my initial hole is through. So I looked on here and I am off to, well, from this perspective, it's off to the left from the center of the thing. But that's okay. I can kind of figure out now that I need to go up a little bit and then over to the right. So it's starting to take shape now. Now this is where I'm going to try. I'm going to attempt to fit a jack now. I'm not going to lie to you. This feels really sketchy doing this. It does not feel, you know, as sane as doing the other side, because it's a lot of Dremeling. If you're really, really not comfortable doing this, there are ways of doing it. You can do balance single-sided. Where basically, let's say you just did the left side, but instead of using a TRS jack, you use a TRRS jack, which means that you can have individual grounds for each side. So the wire that runs from the right side to the left will have its own connections on the post on the left side. The problem there that you're going to find is getting a cable that works for that, for balance, so like a TRRS to 4-pin XLR. So unless you're making cables for it too, that might be kind of tough for you. But if you know how to do that, and maybe someone out there makes cables like that on a regular basis that you can contact, that would work too. But for these dual-sided mods, you're going to have a much easier time finding cables that are going to work, because focal, as well as hi-fi men use the same dual-sided 3.5mm cables, so they're pretty regularly available. So now I'm clipping my other side wings. I'm gonna try a test fit. There's a good chance it won't work the first time, because I mean, you're making this yourself here. Hey, it just popped right in. Look at that. Absolutely no hassle. Now, what is different about this side is, since it's not perfectly square, I can't make a perfect square with a Dremel, you know, a round Dremel. So you might have a harder time getting the wings to stay where you want them to. So I've had to cut these wings out before to take the jack out to do a new one, because sometimes they don't like to sit in there right, and then getting it out is a huge pain in the ass. So this might take a few jacks, a few tries, but I'm gonna try this here and see how this goes. You know, see, it doesn't feel as good, and it kind of takes some work. So I mean, no. See, I don't like that. All right. Did that work? That worked. Okay, so just pushing it together kind of worked. All right, so exactly what I said might happen is exactly what happened with the first jack. I took it out, which was annoying. Exactly like I said, you have to like cut underneath these wings all the way to the base as much as you can, and then try and slide the jack out. It's annoying, but it's part of the process for this dual-sided mod. I was able to get the second jack in there by clipping the wings a little tiny bit shorter on each side, and it's not pretty. Like, you see how this one side's bending a little bit? That's fine. It's not going to bend anymore. It's not going to... That's really in there. Just pushing on it's not doing anything. So, we can now proceed doing the same thing that we did to the left side. So I'm going to hot glue this side, this hole here up top. So now we've got our hot glue in there. Again, there's a little bit of stringy stuff that we can pull away later when it's more dry. And then we're going to put this back on this side. Take our other two wires from before that we cut out of the Mogami. Let me clean up this desk a little. Same difference. Oh, sorry, I just realized I'm missing my light. And I also realized this is filming the wrong way. There we go. I don't know what's going to happen with the YouTube format now. I just switched from 9:16 to 16:9. God knows what this video is going to look like now. But from this point on, I mean, you're pretty much done. You're doing the same thing that you did on the other side anyway. Hopefully this helps some of you guys. Now, what I kind of want to go over too, if you've made it this far in the video, I kind of want to go over balanced. So if, let's say you've wired this properly. Hopefully you're just doing, you only need to do tip and sleeve for each side. You don't need to do the ring, which is this left connection here on the jack. But when you have the cable that's running into the amp, you need to absolutely make sure that it is wired correctly, because balanced, I've never done this. I really have very limited experience with balanced equipment, but apparently you can damage your stuff if it's not wired correctly. So absolutely try your best to make sure that everything's wired correctly, so that it's only tip sleeve on each side and that there's no crossing grounds. You don't want grounds touching at all in this balance configuration. Like, let's say you have a 4-pin XLR that's going to your THX 789, like I'm sure some of you guys are going to do. You don't want, what am I doing? What am I supposed to be grabbing? Okay. You don't want anything touching that shouldn't be. So there should be 4 completely independent connections here. There should be no grounds mixed up. If you don't know what I'm talking about, or if you don't know anything about this, I highly recommend reading up about balanced and how the wiring should be before doing any of this, really, because you can actually break your amplifier, I've heard, from having it wired incorrectly. So just know what you're doing. Just be careful. This is, balance isn't really necessary most of the time anyway. It's more for us hobbyists who like to tinker with things and who like fucking XLR plugs and just stuff like that. But just be careful. That's the best advice I can give you. And try to and know what you're doing before you do anything with balanced. Okay, so this is wired up. I'm going to do the hot glue under the wings here. They're a little mismatched here. Oh, come on. Oh, don't tell me I'm out of hot glue right now. Okay, I need to reload this. I'll be back. Alright, so I'm back. Hot glue is done. You can unplug that now. And now we're ready to put more blue tack in again. I know that there's other ways of doing this. Like I mentioned before, there's single-sided TRRS jacks that can be used for balanced. There's also a 4-pin mini XLR male that you can use. I haven't sourced that. I haven't tried it before. My problem there is that I don't like using mini XLR for this mod at all. Even for single-sided, regular 3-pin stuff, because this has this whole system where I can spread the wings out, and that's what's keeping it from being yanked out when you pull on it. With the mini XLR jacks, I don't have any good way of securing it inside the cup like I do with these 3.5mm jacks. There's some that have a nut on the back end, but I can't get it to fit in there. I can't get it to screw down all the way and fit in with the driver in. So when I've had people request specifically 3-pin XLR in the past, oh, that's gross. That's a lot of hot glue that's still not completely dry. Go back down. I just hot glue it in, and it works. It stays, but it's not like the same level of security that I feel with these 3.5mm jacks. And look how nice and flush that is. Both sides. Looks fantastic. Okay, so now we're ready to put in the right side driver. So I'm going to remember here, I'm just going to remember, I don't need to pull out my phone, that on this side we know that the red wire is our ground wire and our white wire is our positive wire. I know that from doing this 300 million times, that I've kind of just learned that this, since this is the right side driver, that's how they wire these. So I'm going to desolder the wire here. The left side is our positive. I'm not going to forget, like I always do. Quick. And now ground. You can see I kind of like tug on the wires to make sure that it's really in there. You want to give it a good shake to make sure it's good. I know a lot of people have trouble soldering. Try and have a good soldering iron to do this. This is really hot. It melts things very quickly. This is also the solder that I use is Kester. I would need to look up the amounts or the numbers on it, but it's really good solder and it melts very quickly and it works great for small electronic stuff like this. And that's that. These are done. So now I'm going to actually twist this the other way. I'm going to twist this one to the right and pop it in, because when you're listening, this is the right side. So now they'll both be tilted backwards. So at least if it's like, you know, I don't know how this works, but at least they're both tilted back towards the back of your head rather than one way and one the other way. I don't think it changes sound at all, having them twisted. I don't think you'll ever notice the difference between them being perfectly upright and slightly twisted, but okay. These are now balanced, or able to be balanced, I should say. For my tests, I have to put them into my single-ended amplifier, so I basically have a cable that, let me get this pad back on. Look how nice that looks. It's the left side. Now it's hard to tell which side is which. This is what those hot glue spots look like now when it's all finished. Doesn't it look kind of nice? And it's all sealed up so it doesn't sound any different. You'll notice it looks a little bit nicer without the wire running, you know, freely up the side here. And just look how clean that is. That's why I love these jacks. They look so nice and they're in there so securely. I run a store on Etsy that I'll do this for you. It's like $75 for the single-sided. It's $90 for the balanced mod because it's a little bit more work involved than the single-sided. But I'll do this for you if you're not comfortable doing this. You can just send me the headphones. I live in New York, so you send me the headphones. I ship them back for free. You just have to pay for shipping to me. But yeah, you can now run these on a balanced amplifier, which is kind of cool. Let's just do, so here's my cable that I made for testing specifically. This is an ugly ass cable. I would not sell this to anybody. So, right side. Plugs in nice, it snaps in. So you hear that? I don't know why this side didn't do it. Let's see if it does it now. It's a little bit different, I guess, just because of the way that it's dremeled in there. But it's still, it fits in nice. They're not going anywhere, you know. You can tug on them. They're not going anywhere. Then on this side I have a 4-pin XLR, which I used to use with my THX like I mentioned before. And then I just have a single-ended adapter. And then you can do the tests. I'm going to leave tests in the description for testing left and right to make sure everything's correct, which I mean it should be from this end, but left and right's correct, that your polarity isn't messed up, which is important because that's one of the easiest things to mess up is polarity. So polarity is basically, the quick and dirty way is your ground is flipped with your positive, so your positive and negatives are flipped, and you're going to hear it. It's going to sound like it's underwater, the music. Like you won't be able to hear the vocals. It'll be drowned out by the guitars. It's going to sound weird and wrong if it's out of phase. So this test that I'm going to link in the description it'll show you if you're out of phase by this test. It's center or twisted, it's called. But that's it. I mean, this is done. I'm going to assume that these are working. I'm going to do a test off camera so that the client's happy and we know that these work before I send them back. But that's it. Thank you guys for watching.